What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, after all of the talk around Xbox exclusives going to other platforms, we do have some exciting news now for the world of Xbox with a major event to look forward to, and it looks like it's going to give us our first real look at some highly anticipated games. We'll go over that, though, here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a report that's really picked up a lot of traction online around the Switch 2 with some apparent leaked specs. And then we also have to talk about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League once again, as previews have come out for it, and they're not exactly kind to Rocksteady's latest game. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure to hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with CES 2024 and Hyperkin, as they have announced a new controller, this once again playing into the nostalgia factor. Remember, they did the Xbox Duke controller, they did the Xbox 360 recreation, and now you can see this image that I'm sure some of you original Xbox fans will recognize. It's the Duchesse controller, as they're calling it, but I'm sure many of us remember it as the Xbox Type S. That controller. This came after the massive hamburger-sized controller that the Xbox launched with. We did get a smaller version here with the refresh. Now, this one, while we don't have a price point or a release date, we do know that it seems to be set up for Xbox Series X, S, Xbox One, Windows, PCs. It does have a share button right in the middle, USB-C port, and a 3.5mm headset jack, as well as Hall effect joysticks. That's great to help fight against stick drift. Still waiting on, again, the other details around pricing and release, but this is just a fun product to have. I mean, you're gonna, I guess, have to plug it into the Xbox, but that also technically plays into the nostalgia from back in the early 2000s. Upgrading to this controller, for me anyway, was all about Halo, specifically Halo 2 when that came out. I remember really getting into it with a Type S controller from the massive original Xbox controller that we had for the most part during that generation. But hey, pretty cool. We'll keep an eye out for the pricing and release date and let you know when that happens. Also, we did get the release date for Palworld, which has been described as Pokemon-like with guns. Yeah, anyway, here's the trailer for it. Now, this game is going to be launching into early access on January 19th, 2024. This is for PC, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, S, and Game Pass. And they describe it as, they say, watch the latest trailer for Palworld to see adorable and formidable creatures, combat, and more from this open world creature collector third-person shooter game. So that's quite the description. I'm still not really sure what to think about this game. I mean, Pokemon, the concept is fun, sure, and I guess this is still kind of set up as, I guess, an open world style game, but you just have apparently like an M16, or you have a Pokemon with a creature with a Gatling gun. So I don't know, early access is always kind of hit or miss anyway, depending on how much of it's really built out, how many of the features are complete. So if anything, hey, it's going into Game Pass in a week or so, and maybe I'll check it out there. Oh, and with CES 2024, we did have Sony do their presentation, and they showed up on stage with a DualSense controller. It's exciting stuff for all the gamers out there. And wouldn't you know it, we have the PS5 Nope, wait, that's a car. Yeah, they drove the Afeela car out, which is the electric vehicle that's a collaboration between Sony and Honda Mobility, and they used the DualSense controller to get it out there on stage. Now, they mentioned that this was just for the tech demo purposes, but then kind of joked about, you never know, with these electric cars, it could be a fun little gimmick. I guess, but it is funny to think that Sony showed up there, and while they did have some announcements, especially when it came to like the media side for different shows they're doing, like Gravity Rush, that's kind of cool to see that at least referenced. The one time they pull out a DualSense controller, not for a video game, but to drive the electric car out on stage. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Xbox and the developer direct we have to look forward to next week. Now, this was posted up over on news.xbox.com. We can see the card at the top giving us an idea of some of the games we can expect, and they went into some more details around each title as well. But this event will take place January 18th, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and they say it's going to follow up with the Elder Scrolls Online 2024 a global reveal event. So, all right, there you go for all the Elder Scrolls Online fans out there. But as you can see with the graphic, we have 4 different games or 4 different studios that we're going to be touring around here, starting with Indiana Jones. Now, of course, this from Machine Games, and this is the one I think most people are interested in seeing because we haven't seen anything at all, really. Okay, so when they initially showed it, they kind of panned over a desk, and eventually we got to the point where like, okay, wow, this is an Indiana Jones game, and they're gonna have Machine Games do it, who we're used to for something like Wolfenstein. So, all right, it's an action adventure game. They say that puts players in the leather jacket of a legendary archaeologist. They say that there will be 10 minutes of game and developer insights that'll be showcased here, including details about the game setting and story and how you'll actually play as Indy. And this is interesting because people were thinking, okay, is this a first-person game? Because that's going to be kind of weird with what we assume to be some of the maybe parkour elements, or this. For an action-adventure game, you immediately think third person. Now, there have been some rumors that'll be kind of a mix of both, and I guess that can work too, but that's going to be an interesting one to see here, but hey, it seems like that's almost their headlining game here, starting with that one. Avowed, of course, at Obsidian, they'll be showcasing this, and the one I'm curious about here with Avowed is it coming out this year? Because Indiana Jones, believe it or not, there's discussion currently about that coming out sooner than we were expecting, and I wouldn't be shocked if Indiana Jones, the way they close out maybe a trailer to give us our first look at it, is the year 2024, and they push for a holiday release on that one. That'd be big time to place that next to what we assume to be as a brand new Call of Duty. But Avowed, still, that's a big one for them, playing into that fantasy action RPG genre from Obsidian, what we know they do best. So I'm curious if they try to put a date or a year on that one as well. Era History Untold, and this is from Oxide Games, studio that was founded by veterans of the strategy genre, and they're creators behind classic strategy titles, including Civilization V. So, looking at the screenshots and stuff, you can kind of get a grasp on, okay, this is going to be a Civ RTS strategy style game, so fans of that, I'm sure, are really looking forward to this one. But Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 with Ninja Theory will be here, and they, I'm sure, have a lot they can show off here in the developer direct, where they go behind the scenes, they show the people working at these different studios. We've already seen quite a bit around Hellblade 2 and how they're putting it together, so this should play in well to Ninja Theory being very transparent with how they are doing the development, but this would be the moment, I feel like, to give us the release date on it, because I think Hellblade is first half of 2024. I wouldn't be shocked if that's like an April or a May release, and seems like it would be a perfect way for them to really set the tone for 2024, because I believe that Hellblade 2 is going to be pretty good. Like, that's when I wouldn't be shocked if it came out and hit like high 80s or maybe low 90s. I'm still sticking with like mid to high 80s on Metacritic, but really setting the bar for 2024 with Xbox right there at the front. I think this is a big one for them to showcase and put a big focus on here during this presentation. But if you're going to show it again, you got to have that release date ready, because we've seen it over and over and over again. I mean, it was first showcased with the Xbox Series X the first time we saw that at the Game Awards. It's been a while, so I think now it's time to show off that release date. But exciting stuff here with the developer direct queued up for next week. Get to see some Xbox games, and maybe some coming sooner than we were expecting. Next up, let's talk about the apparent leak for the Switch 2 specifications, the technical details. And this report popped up online and actually exploded to the point where people were sending it to me. There was discussion on all different forums, on Twitter, and of course it popping up on different news sites. So since it seemed to be of such great interest, I figured I would weigh in here on what we're looking at. But we can head over here to Go Nintendo, who is nice enough to list all the details from the Taiwanese economics website, which you have to use like machine translation to get it over to English to see exactly what they're saying. So of course that can have some nuances and things lost in translation there. But others, like on Fanboards, were able to do a more native translation to kind of weed out some of those nuances. However, the big things that people were looking at, okay, so the NVIDIA's T239 processor, that's been a focal point of discussion for quite some time now. 8 gigabytes of RAM, 64 gigabytes of storage, greatly improved battery life, 120 hertz screen refresh rate, and a price of $400. The price I can agree with. I think $400 is about right. for Nintendo, especially with where the other console manufacturers are and just overall inflation and the way Nintendo likes to price their stuff out of the gate that try to make money on it. The 120 hertz refresh rate for the screen is something I have long theorized about, and I think a higher refresh screen in handheld mode would be very, very interesting, especially since they can also take advantage of that in docked mode, of course, utilizing some tricks and things that NVIDIA can play up here with the system. Now, the battery life being greatly improved, I feel like we're going to have basically similar, maybe worse battery life. Okay, that's my expectation. Now, the two real sticking points for people has been 8 gigabytes of RAM, 64 gigabytes of storage. So looking at this site, where this report's coming from, very rarely have they been accurate, and the reasoning for that is because a lot of it is market speculation, and that appears to be where this report is falling under. And just kind of looking around myself and asking around a bit, I feel like 8 gigabytes of RAM, while possible, because I can't rule out Nintendo being Nintendo, I think they're undershooting a little bit. And it's funny to say that with Nintendo because people expect them to always be just behind the curve with anything technical like this. I think Nintendo, if they want this system to last, well, let's say it coming out 2024, right? If they want it to last 7 or 8 years, I'm thinking they go with something, it might sound a little weird, but like a 12 gigabytes of RAM, especially if they're shooting for a high refresh screen at 120 hertz. A lot of developers now are already creating games with 16 gigabytes of RAM in mind. I mean, you look at even the other handhelds, they have 16 gigabytes. So I think Nintendo going at 8 would be a short-term, like a mistake to try to save in the short term. It'd probably make more sense to go just a bit up from that. And then the 64 gigabytes of storage, again, it sounds funny because it's Nintendo and you go, yeah, okay, it's Nintendo. That sounds disappointing enough to be true. I think that's off as well. I think we get more storage built in with the system, and of course they'll utilize SD cards. But I told you guys the reports wouldn't stop coming out, and it's going to continue over the next couple of months. So I know people get fatigued by the Switch 2 rumors and news and stuff, but I mean, I don't make the news, and if people send me the articles and they seem very interested in it, I go with what the viewers would like to see. And that's why we talked about leaked specifications that probably are not correct in the first place. It's like back in 2016 when we were doing the big hype cycle for the Switch and there were all kinds of rumors out there that ended up being incorrect. Feel like we're about to go through that now, or we're going through that actually right now. So here's hoping Nintendo has that Switch 2 announcement, Super Switch announcement queued up, because I think we're all ready for it to actually come to fruition, and then we can move on and talk about software, which, speaking of software, there's actually some news around maybe games that Nintendo could be setting up for next gen. Which takes us over here to gamesindustry.biz, and this is an article that was written up discussing, can the Switch 2 surpass its predecessor? And while most of this is kind of just opinion and conjecture and sort of working through this themselves, there was an interesting little bit of info here that started to pick up some steam online with discussion. This from Christopher Dring, saying Nintendo regularly works with third-party teams, including Bandai Namco, Team Ninja, Platinum Games, Mercury Steam, WayForward, and Grezzo, but the company is looking to add to that roster, and I know of 3 studios that are deep in conversation around making games based on Nintendo brands. Now, again, this isn't a new strategy for Nintendo. Even recently, if you look at like Super Mario RPG, that was Arte Piazza who worked on that with Nintendo. Pikmin 4 was from A-Ting. Advanced Wars 1 and 2 was WayForward, Bayonetta Origins, of course, Platinum Games. But it got me thinking about Nintendo just expanding further because, well, as we go into their new generation, just fidelity in general, development times, all this is going to increase. So you feel like you want to bring on more third parties that you can work with and have these intellectual properties that might sit around otherwise to work to fill in the gaps in their calendar or just increase their output, because that's Nintendo's biggest thing is they pretty much push their system completely on their own. The third-party stuff that comes in is just kind of nice to have, but you buy a Nintendo system to then play Nintendo games. So I was thinking about a few things, like Capcom could make another top-down Zelda game. I think that'd be cool when I say another because they did Minish Cap. So while that was a while ago, why not see what they can come up with here? FromSoft, can we get them involved with Nintendo? Maybe a Kid Icarus game? What about bringing in Sega for a new F-Zero title? Or the one that I think is the most obvious, Ubisoft Toronto doing a Star Fox game. Remember, they made Starlink Battle for Atlas, and while that was the smaller point of the game, it wasn't like the vast majority of the content was playing, through the Star Fox part of it. It was still well done, and I think it'd be really cool to see them tackle it completely with the right guidance from Nintendo and budget put behind it. But let me know which studios you would like to see Nintendo collaborate with, as this isn't a new strategy, but it's really fun to see these random logos pop up alongside Nintendo, and they bring in an intellectual property that you're used to, but they put a new twist on it. So I guess leave some of your best guesses and things you'd like to see down below in the comments. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, that has just not gone over well online ever since it was shown with the gameplay. It was already kind of weird to have Rocksteady do that as opposed to, I don't know, a Superman game, or, hey, play it safe, another Batman game. Well, they had previews come out, and it's kind of as we feared. I don't think this is going to be a good outing for Rocksteady at all. Now, we can see this was posted up by VGC, where they say a few hours with Rocksteady Suicide Squad isn't enough to convince. Rocksteady's co-op looter shooter is a long departure from its Arkham trilogy in more ways than one. IGN was pretty blunt. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League preview, we played it and didn't like it. And here's the thing that I think is really getting people. The UI, the HUD. So images were going around from some of the gameplay that was shared, and yeah, it's quite busy. It's kind of like that, remember that Ubisoft meme that was going around where they threw everything possible on the screen, and they were then comparing it to FromSoft, who didn't put anything on screen for Elden Ring, really? It seemed like they were trying to hit every single checkbox for what one of these live service MMO light style games to be, and it's not good, and it's very unfortunate because this is what Rocksteady's been working on for about 8 years now. And keep in mind, they're probably going to work to support this thing for, I feel like, at least a year or two, as the amount of money dumped into this thing at this point. WB probably wants to try to make it work if they can, but I feel like a lot of people are already just checked out on it. The story is at least interesting, and that was the highlight in many of these previews. Is I want to see what happens, but this gameplay, the game itself, not pulling me forward. So it's unfortunate. Maybe it eventually just turns into a movie or a comic, or maybe it already is. But either way, maybe that's something they can explore there, or somebody just, let's face it, cuts together all the different scenes, the in-between cinematics, and you can just watch it on YouTube in a couple of hours. But yeah, unfortunate stuff here for Rocksteady's latest outing with Suicide Squad. It's out at the end of this month, I believe, in like that 72-hour window for early access. Otherwise, though, look to the first week of February for its official launch. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, which game are you most interested in hearing about at the Xbox Developer Direct? Wow, 51% say Indiana Jones, and 24% say Senua's Saga, and Avowed came in third. And then, all right, Aura History Untold is right there, kind of as expected. Again, it's that Civ RTS style game. I know it's not as flashy as something like Indiana Jones, but still, I think the unknown that is Indiana Jones, how it's going to play, how it's going to look, the direction for it, the setting, that is probably the most intriguing to many people at this time. And if it looks good, and then they flash the 2024 release window, that's be some exciting stuff. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Darkness, says, Switch 2 rumors are paying for Spawnwave's mortgage at this stage. Hey, there's definitely a lot of interest in Nintendo's next generation device, and it's to the point where things like that get posted up and just make the rounds so much that it's difficult to ignore at times, because people look into it and go, oh wow, I guess it's gonna have 8 gigabytes of RAM or 64 gigabytes of storage, that's it, without having context around even the sourcing behind it necessarily. So that's just kind of where we are. Probably another couple of months of this, and then we'll get the actual announcement from Nintendo, unless people genuinely believe we're going to go to 2025 without anything from Nintendo for a Switch 2. Wouldn't that be something? We complete 8 years on the market for the current Switch, with remasters mostly holding it up for the last 12 months. Again, I think Nintendo is prepping and setting up, and hopefully in a couple of months, we won't be dealing with the rumors around the Switch 2, we'll be dealing with the system itself. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Well, there's the Xbox Developer Direct setup for next week. What are you most excited to hear about? And then also, what about the Switch 2 leaked specifications? Would you be concerned if those actually ended up being correct across the board? And then Nintendo seemingly expanding some of their third-party collaborations. Who would you like to see Nintendo work with the most? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.